few seconds after 7, so we will get going. If everyone would please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Nikki, would you please call roll?
Ms. Davis?
Here.
Ms. Hill?
Here.
Mrs. Hopper?
Here.
Mr. Schindler?
Here.
Dr. Giordino?
Here.
Mr. Seltzer?
Here.
Mr. Thomas?
I am here. May I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education call for a closed session on November 17th, 2021, following the regular meeting at the Welcome Center for the purpose of considering 1, legal actions, causes of action, or litigation involving the district and any confidential or privileged communication between the district or its representatives and its attorneys, 610.021.1, and 2, records which are protected from disclosure by law, 610.021.14.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Nikki.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Dr. Giordino?
Yes.
Mr. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mr. Thomas?
Yes, motion carries 7-0. Let's see, tonight we have a number of special recognitions. We are recognizing an outstanding group of Parkway students and even a couple of schools. It's been our Parkway tradition to take time and recognize deserving individuals and schools at our regularly scheduled board meetings. And tonight's recognitions will be virtual, and the students, their families, and the schools have been invited to watch the live stream of the meeting. So at this time, I'd like to invite Dr. Chelsea Watson, our Deputy Superintendent, to begin the recognition of our National Merit students.
Good evening, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, members of the board, Dr. Marty, Mrs. Stover. 55 Parkway students have been recognized by the National Merit Scholarship Corporation, an independent non-for-profit organization that conducts competitions for recognition and college undergraduate scholarships through 2 programs, the National Merit Scholarship Program and the National Achievement Scholarship Program. The National Merit Scholarship Program is an annual academic competition which identifies seniors who represent the top of their graduating class. Commended students placing among the top 5% of more than 1.5 million students who entered the competition by taking the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, SAT. More than 1.5 million juniors, over 22,000 high school students entered this National Merit Program by taking the SAT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, which serves as the initial screener. About 16,000 students, representing less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors, qualified as National Merit semifinalists, and 95% will go on to become finalists. 33 Parkway students earned National Merit semifinalist status, and an additional 22 are recognized as commended. Our National Merit semifinalists have an opportunity to qualify for nearly 7,500 scholarships and awards worth more than $30 million, which will be offered next spring. So this evening, we are going to recognize students from Central, North, South, and West high schools. So Central High commended students. Congratulations to these students. Nathaniel Green, Eden Lerner, Sarah Shires, and those are our commended students. Our Central High semifinalist, Daniel Barris. Wait a minute, was I supposed to be clicking this? I'm so sorry. There we go, names here. Forgot that I needed to click. So those are our 3 National Merit commended students. And then, you went the wrong way. I'm sorry, and I practiced this clicker before we started. Okay, so next we're going to go to our North National Merit Commended students. Natalie Arnold, Avery Brown, Riley Heffern, Adam Kirkmeyer, and Noah Centaur. Congratulations to those students. Our South High National Merit Commended students, student Ethan Klein. West High National Merit Commended students, Alexander Bardot, Zana DeBull, Harper Dollarhide, Claire Fulkins, Salim Haji, Mona Anjay, Esther G, Rika Kulkarni, Tanvi Kulkarni, David Meisinger, Kavan Rize, Catherine Yates, Yi Zhang. Congratulations to those students. And now to our National Merit semifinalist, Central High, Daniel Barris, George Harris, Cynthia Yu, Sarah Joseph, Rohit Krishnamurthy, Jeremy Lee, Neil Nyack, Samuel Opinski, Olivia Kwan, Inchara Shetty, Fariha Siddique, Adrita Singh, and Ian Umar. Congratulations to those students. And now for our North High semifinalists, Sanjana Panwar, Josie Rand, and our South High National Merit semifinalist, Riley Darrow, Louisa Lehman, and Kevin Potast. And now, our National Merit semifinalists from West High. Alexander Bardot. Sorry, I'm on the wrong list. Brianda Ambal, Amanda Clark, Grace Dong, Martin Franciscus, Jackson Gillespie, Connor Gusky, Isaiah Judy, Luke Legler, Marissa Liu, Tricia Manna, Paige Matthews Pierce, Mira Nalbanian, Shriti Panda, Noah Withers, and Kevin Zhang. Please recognize all of these wonderful accomplishments of these students. So you don't do it, I did. It's that button.
Thank you. Today, we have an opportunity to take a look at our National Lighthouse schools, as well as our schools of National Schools of Character. So first, the Leader in Me Lighthouse School. Within the education industry, it is common for schools to receive recognition for outstanding achievement. The Lighthouse certification is a highly regarded standard set by Franklin Covey that is attainable by every Leader in Me school. As it is a significant benchmark, applying for the certification typically occurs 4 to 5 years after a school begins the Leader in Me process. Certification is evidence that schools have produced outstanding results in the school and student outcomes by implementing the process with fidelity and excellence. It's also because of the extraordinary impact that the schools may be having on staff, students, parents, and the greater community. Leader in Me unites students, staff, and families around a common goal to prepare students with college, career, and life readiness skills that are necessary to thrive in today's ever-changing, fast-paced environment. Please join me in congratulating Belle Reeve Elementary for renewing their Leader in Me Lighthouse School designation. Now for the National School of Character. The National School of Character Recognition Program is run by character.org, the National Character Education Organization. Each year, schools apply to be recognized at the state level, and if chosen for that, they move on to the national level. It is a rigorous process that requires the schools to outline their character education practices that align with the character.org's 11 principles of character education. Schools are also required to submit data and artifacts to show the effectiveness of their efforts. Evaluators from across the state and country read the applications and score them. The following schools received recognition at the state and national levels in 2021. It's Barrett's Elementary and Craig Elementary. At this time, I want to share several highlights from each school's application and evaluation. First, let's celebrate Barrett's Elementary for their award renewal. Barrett's, their core values of being responsible, respectful, safe, and kind are evident in all that they do, including leadership binders and the discipline process. The evaluator noted that they have a welcoming environment for parents to get involved. Their staff has a strong bond with one another. They support and encourage each other. Students report having a strong voice and choice and feeling like they belong. Their use of daily morning meetings contributes to the overall feeling of community at Barrett's. Next, I would like to celebrate Craig Elementary for their award renewal. Here are some notes from their application and evaluation. Students had extensive input into the core values that are established at Craig Elementary. The Chain Link Core Value Recognition System helps the community to incorporate those core values into their daily life. Craig helps students to be self-motivated and take ownership of their learning through adopting a growth mindset and building a positive culture throughout the school. We're very pleased with Craig Elementary and Barrett's as they have worked diligently to complete the process during a pandemic nonetheless, which is no small task at all. We expect even more renewals this year and new applications coming in the coming years. Please join me in congratulating both Barrett's and Craig Elementaries on their most deserved recognition.
Next, please welcome Dr. Kevin Beckner, Assistant Superintendent of Teaching, Learning, and Accountability.
Well, good evening. The ACT is a curriculum-based achievement exam that measures what students have learned in school. Students who earn a 36 composite score have likely mastered all of the skills and knowledge they'll need to succeed in first-year college courses in the core subject areas. ACT scores are accepted by all major four-year colleges and universities across the U.S. The ACT consists of tests in English, mathematics, reading, and science, each scored on a scale from 1 to 36. A student's composite score is the average of the four test scores. Nationally, while the actual number of students earning the top score varies from year to year, on average fewer than 1% of students who take the ACT earn a top score. In the U.S. high school graduating class of 2020, only 5,579 out of nearly 1.67 million students who took the ACT earned a composite score of 36. In July, Amon Pai, a junior from North High, scored a 36, the highest possible score on the ACT College Admissions and Placement Exam. After high school, Amon wants to attend either MIT or California Institute of Technology and plans to study civil engineering and maybe environmental engineering. After university, he wants to become a civil engineer. Outside of school, he plays video games and streams them on his Twitch channel, and he also spends time listening to music wherever he can, which is one of his favorite pastimes, and please join me in congratulating Amon Pai. Next, we have the STARS program. This is Students and Teachers as Research Scientists. The Students and Teachers as Research Scientists program has been working to foster curiosity in talented area high school students since 1989. The students heading into their senior years get paired with local scientists in the fields of biology, chemistry, computer science, earth science, engineering, environmental science, mathematics, medicine, physics, and psychology, and gain firsthand experience doing research for 6 weeks over the summer. The high school students coordinate their own research projects under the direction of one of 18 primary investigators from the faculty at the University of Missouri St. Louis University, or Washington University in St. Louis. The program was temporarily significantly reduced in 2021, and there were far fewer students and extra events due to the pandemic. The 2021 STARS program exposed 36 area high school students to a summer of scientific research. It's transformational for the students who do it, said Megan Humphreys, an assistant professor at UMSL's Department of Biology, who served as the program's coordinator this summer. She also said, I think this really opens their eyes to what exactly science is and how you have to persist. It's not clean, it's not quick, it's frustrating, it takes time, you have setbacks, you have to stick with it. I think it's a big deal for them to experience, she said. It was more challenging than usual to find faculty members willing to host students in their labs this summer due to the uncertain circumstances, so they couldn't offer as many spots in the program as a typical year, but there was still plenty of demand. In fact, there were nearly 100 applications, and they ended up accepting 36 from 15 different area schools in our region. The students conducted research. I hope I can pronounce I was a history teacher. I don't even know if I can pronounce everything they studied, but we'll try. The students conducted research on electrochemistry, gastroenterology, machine learning, pollinator biology, and robotics. And they received insight into the college admissions process and how to craft a strong essay to accompany their applications. We had 2 students out of the 36 participating from the Parkway School District. Please join me in congratulating Inchara Shelty from Central High and Trisha Mana from West High. Congratulations to these students.
Thank you. Certificates will be mailed to all the students and schools. Thank you to all of our students, their families, and Parkway staff for joining us virtually this evening. Parents, you have some outstanding children and should be very proud. Next up on our agenda, we have only one addition, correction, and/or modification to tonight's agenda. That includes 7.01, addendum to agenda item 11.08, approval of personnel items. Next up is public comments. We have 6 people signed up this evening. It's during this time at our meeting that we provide for citizen comments in an effort to maintain an open and respectful dialogue with our community. The public comment session is not the appropriate forum for addressing individually identifiable student and/or personnel matters. Therefore, due to privacy laws protecting students and employees, comments about these matters should not include personally identifiable information about particular students or employees. Members of the public, staff, and students are encouraged to utilize established policies and procedures for offering suggestions or addressing concerns and complaints prior to bringing the issue before the board. Please be mindful that the meetings of the board, including your statements at the podium, are broadcast and that you are responsible for any public comment you make. In lieu of a public statement, you may choose to submit your comments to the board in writing. Also, due to time constraints and the need to complete the primary responsibilities of our meeting agenda, we cannot respond during the meeting, so you will receive a response from us in writing. We are always available to have an open dialogue outside of our meetings and can be reached by email or phone using the contact information on the Parkway website. As I mentioned, we have 6 speakers. Tonight you will have 3 minutes each to come to the podium and let us know what your name and your affiliation with Parkway, and then you can begin speaking. I will call on speakers in the order that they signed up. We will begin with Wayne Hartman, who will be followed by Nicole Feltus.
First thing I'd like to say is Superintendent Marty, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule to meet with me. It was a good meeting, and I want to also say thank you to Nikki for getting me that extra information that I was requesting. I appreciate that very much. Mr. Todd, in our emails exchange, there was one correction that I needed to make. When I said that I worked with kids and their parents through sports for 45 years, that was wrong. It was 48 years. Also, according to Mr. Todd, you all have my email address. So, Mr. Sam, I'm going to call you Mr. Sam. I don't want to screw up your last name. You're finishing up your 12th year in a few months. Since 2010, has Parkway School District gotten better in your opinion or worse? And explain your answer to that. And two, what ideas, if you decide to run for another term, could you bring forward to make Parkway District better for the kids who attend the schools? And you can email me that. And Pam Hill, same thing. You gave an interview article to the West News magazine, and it really painted West Middle School in a bleak light. Yes, things like spaces never meant to be classrooms, they're overcrowded, converted classrooms, crowded hallways create safety issues, anxiety for the staff, and I mean, it sounded pretty bleak. There was no ideas in the article as to how you would correct anything. So you're finishing up your third year now. So from 2019 to the present time, has Parkway, in your opinion, gotten better or worse? And explain how you come to that decision. And two, if you so choose, decide to run again for another 3 years, what ideas can you bring forward that will make it better for Parkway District and the kids attending the schools? I appreciate that. Thank you. And if somebody needs my extra 40 seconds, they can have it.
Next up is Nicole Feltus. I hope I pronounced that last name correct. Following Nicole will be Lauren Cash.
Hello, my name is Nicole Feltus, and I am the mom of 4 Parkway students, a 6th grader at West Middle, and 3 students, a 4th grader, a 3rd grader, and a kindergartner at Piermont Elementary. I've never attended or even considered attending a Board of Education meeting, and I had a high regard for the leadership and trust in the school district. However, I'm here tonight to put a face in a story against the carefully crafted data supporting the shift in moving Piermont, the most diverse of the West feeder schools, both socioeconomically and racially, to South Middle. And I strongly urge you to vote no and consider the individuals and the families like me that are negatively impacted by the decision to move Piermont to South Middle. My family purchased our home 8 years ago in the Royal Village neighborhood off Henry Road. Intentionally, we were aiming for Piermont, Claymont, or Henry elementaries because we knew that they would attend West for middle and West for high school. We selected a home zoned for Piermont, and it should be noted that our house is actually closer to both Claymont and Henry than it is Piermont. And my sister then moved to the neighborhood so that we could do life together, so that we could share the load. So between the two of us, we have 7 children, 6 at Piermont and 1 at West Middle. We love everything about Piermont, with the exception of crossing 141 to attend the school. Like many families, COVID threw a huge wrench in our daily routine, and honestly, things in our family are still in flux. The impact of the pandemic will be significant and long-lasting. What we know today is that more than ever before in our lifetime, students are struggling. They're struggling academically, but more importantly, they and their parents are struggling emotionally. That is why I believe this is absolutely the wrong time to disrupt their lives, making this shift. Throughout the process, both the administration and the board has said that this is a decision is a matter of equity. I believe that Piermont students, who I already said are the most diverse socioeconomically and racially, and their families are not being treated equitably in this decision. Not once in the work session, which is why I'm here today because I watched it and was disturbed, was it stated that this disruption is an impact to our students at Piermont. Not once was their social emotional health brought up in a work session where that should have been stated very clearly. It wasn't stated, it wasn't explored. I'd like to quickly point out two things. We already know transitions are difficult for students, and the transition for Piermont students to South and then back to West High will absolutely negatively impact those students, especially in the next few years as we recover from COVID. You may be surprised to learn that there are less than 60 students in my daughter's entire grade, and I'm not sure how those students will transition to West Middle. Can I have the 40 seconds?
You can have another 20 to wrap it up, please.
Thank you. With this shift, I have to make extremely difficult decisions for my kiddos. I have a 4th grader, and I have to decide where they will go. Telling me that moving the students and peers is not an equitable decision for my students. This process has lacked transparency, and I question the integrity and character of the process. The parents' data has not been shared through the public comment period, and the only data has been numbers. I am not a number.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, we have Lauren Cash. Following Ms. Cash will be Nicholas Gott.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Cash. I'm a Parkway mom of 2. I want to talk about transparency and accountability in our schools, or rather the lack thereof. When my daughter started her freshman year this fall, freshman orientation was drop-off, child only. Then a freshman orientation for the parents via Zoom. And parent-teacher conferences came around. Again, only via Zoom. Why? I have never met in person the principal or any of the teachers that my daughter spends her day with. I have not been invited in as a new freshman parent to tour the building and see my daughter's classrooms. Why? I'm a taxpayer, having not met the public school educators face-to-face or toured the public school. How is that conducive to the betterment of my daughter's education when I can't meet her educators in person and see the environment in which she is learning? It's too disconnected. A quality learning environment should be more personable than this, with better communication with the parents of the student. And no, this is not about COVID and safety, because if the kids can go in masked, so can the parents for parent-teacher conferences. No, this feels like parents being shut out of schools intentionally. It's not a public school. Clearly, it's not open to the tax-paying parents, except for, of course, the fundraising events. These are government schools funded by government and compelled by government, which leads me to my next point. You know damn well that masking at school is not about our kids' safety. I mean, they were unmasked outside at homecoming in, quote, a sweaty mosh pit of kids, according to my daughter. But that's okay. And now there's a vaccine for the younger group, should those parents choose. So, it is time to make masks optional. It's time for the schools and the school board to start listening to the tax-paying parents. We, the parents, have the right to choose. And we have the right to accountable and transparent schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Next is Nicholas Scott. He'll be followed by Allison Bowers.
This board has shown that while they may be hearing the Piermont families, they are not listening. I would rather spend my time addressing people that can actually empathize with what is being proposed, as they clearly cannot. While they may claim that they are considering all sides, we, like most Piermont parents, feel this issue was decided a long time ago and that our words carry no weight. I hope I'm wrong and that our paranoia was unnecessary. But I will not apologize for our assumptions, given the gravity of the consequences and the failure of this board to address them with us. I'd rather speak to you because this board cannot imagine the consequences our children will face because their privilege protects them from ever being in such a position. We know, just as you know, that if a board member was in Piermont, another school would suddenly become the one that was most movable. And more than their privilege as board members, their privilege in life is clearly informing their lack of empathy. And this is more than just a feeling. See, I had a phone conversation with a board member shortly after my first time speaking here. And as we'd previously been friendly, I believe he spoke more candidly to me. Now, most of what he said was empty double talk, but one thing stuck out as greatly illuminating. And I quote, "I didn't think this was going to be a big deal. We thought people only cared about where they went to high school." For people like him, yeah, that stuff doesn't matter as much. People like him might already have a job waiting for them regardless of where they go to school. For people like him, where you went to high school is just another status symbol, another signal for showing your peers which part of the crust you come from. I don't fault him for this privilege, but it must be acknowledged given the flippant nature of, we only thought people cared where they went to high school. Some of us don't have that luxury. Some of us have to worry about every school and every step. Some of us have spent years sacrificing and planning, trying to set our kids up for the success that we were not set up for. Instead of success, this proposed plan sets Piermont kids up for failure, ripping them away from their peer groups at two of their most important times of their academic and sociological development. This is why I'm speaking to you and not them. They will never understand. They will go home tonight and sleep just fine because none of this affects their families. But if this proposal passes, every Piermont parent will go home devastated because we will know all the future heartaches our children will face. We will feel all of the tears that we have to shed trying to explain to them why we could not do more.
Thank you, Mr. Gott. We're going to
Any
move on to
board
the next
member
speaker.
voting on this proposal
Mr. Gott.
is a failure and should be ashamed. Their
Mr. Gott, it's time for the next speaker,
are
Mr.
not
Gott.
good enough.
Thank you. Next up, we have Allison Bowers.
One sec. Yeah, I apologize. My name is Allison Bowers. I'm the mother of a West Middle student, and I'm also the mother of a Piermont student. I'm also notably a Parkway South grad, if that matters. I am here tonight to not speak for my students because I've done that and have not been heard. I have had 23 interactions with you guys, and I've received one response over the past 18 months. One. But I am here tonight to speak for the teachers because they're too scared to stand up to you. I have quotes that they have given to us anonymously because they fear retribution from the board if they were to speak. Most recently, there was a survey done. I don't know if you guys failed to look at the numbers, but only 60% responded to this survey. We're making decisions off of these things? Here are some direct quotes. I hate to say this because I'm big for standing up and what I believe. I'm not comfortable speaking out. I'm worried because I'm going to get a target on my back. I am saddened that this is the way Parkway is handling this situation. Unfortunately, we as teachers have learned this is how Parkway handles everything. They make a decision, they act like they want input, and they never stray from their original decision. There's a definite split between upper administration and the rest of the district. They sit in their offices and make decisions with little regard for actual human beings. It's awful and disheartening. Here's another quote from a teacher or a staff. Piermont teachers and administrators are supportive of the Piermont community. We understand families' concerns and share many of the same concerns, especially regarding their socio-emotional impact. However, we don't feel like there's much we can do with regards to fighting the proposal. As employees, we walk a fine line of explicit disagreement and worry about repercussions. Next, I wish I could speak to you guys. It is such a shame that Parkway bullies their teachers. My points and knowledge are meaningful. Another quote, I feel like I can't say much over email. I'm really sad for you. This is really a disappointment that Parkway is not being more transparent, although I'm not surprised, not at all. Let me talk to my NEA rep to see what he thinks. I mean, I think it says a lot for itself that I worry about speaking publicly on this. Okay, my NEA rep says that I can speak as a parent, but I want to be wary as I'm a teacher to get too involved. But although I could do this, I'm not sure that I can speak onto the angle of not being able to speak with my mind because of administration concerns. There are certainly things that I wouldn't say and publicly comment of because of that concern. Again, I know you have a hard job. I know you have a hard decision. I chose 18 months ago, after 3 years of looking for homes, to relocate within Piermont before this came up. You have to think about us as parents. You have to think about us as kids. My kid has not had a normal school year since kindergarten. This is not the time to make these changes for these children. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Next up is Michelle Fusner.
Good evening, Dr. Marty, Mr. Todd, Mrs. Hopper, Board of Education, other administration members. Although I know most of you have probably made up your mind already way before you walked in the door tonight, I wanted to make you aware of a couple of circumstances that many of you probably were not involved in. This involves changes to the boundary that happened back in 2011 and 2019, before many of you were on the board or administrators, or maybe just were not aware of. Because of these, I would ask that it is imperative that you table this matter. For instance, back in 2011, when boundaries were being examined, enrollment was rising in those areas. In this case, enrollment at West Middle is flat. But yet back then, you wanted to balance school enrollment for schools of comparable size. In this case, South Middle and West Middle are not comparable in size. South Middle is the smallest middle school in the district at 1,000 square feet. West Middle is the largest middle school in the district at 1,500 square feet. It makes no sense that they should have the same amount of students. In addition, you sought to buy in from families early with public hearings. You surveyed parents. You also had public comments at each school that would be affected by the changes, and there was a 33-member task force. All of this is in documents from publications through the St. Louis Post-Dispatch and other publications in the St. Louis area is where this information is gathered from. In 2019, the boundary changes were also being considered because enrollment was rising. Again, here it is flat. In 2019, again, there was also a survey conducted. If a change really is needed, which it has not been substantiated, you must table this matter and allow Piermont parents to have a comment period, to have public hearings, and to have surveys. You allowed this with the Mosaic parents, many of who do not even live within the Piermont boundaries. This shows clear bias. I would also like to ask you to table the matter because of a comment that came from a Parkway publication, namely the Longhorn Way. It says, "We know physical and mental health plays a crucial role in a student's ability to succeed in school. Having rewarding relationships with family members and friends and lead productive and happy lives. The pandemic has only magnified this understanding of the need to support mental health for our students. Another reason this matter should be tabled because of COVID and the critical effects this has already had and will continue to have on our students' mental health." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fusner. Next up, we'll approve our agenda for this evening. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of Education as scheduled for November 17th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Next regular board meeting will take place on Wednesday, December 15th, 2021, beginning at 7 p.m. right here at the Parkway Welcome Center. We have a little bit of news to share regarding board candidate filing. House Bill 271, which became law this year, changed the filing period for the election of school board members. Filing period used to be from about middle of December through middle of January. Filing period now begins the 17th Tuesday. Is that right?
December 7th.
Well, it's
17th. Yeah,
You have to
okay.
finish the whole thing.
The filing period now begins the 17th Tuesday and ends the 14th Tuesday prior to the municipal election day in April. It's a little complicated how they're figuring this out now. For the April 2022 election, filing will begin on December 7th, 2021, and end on December 28th, 2021. Very much smaller window than we've had in the past. So 2 director positions are open in the Parkway Board of Education, each for a 3-year term in the April 5th, 2022 election. The terms of Pam Hill and Sam Sortino expire in April 2022. Interested and qualified persons may file in person at the Parkway Administrative Center, 455 North Woods Mill Road, Chesterfield, Missouri 63017. Filing begins on December 7th, 2021 at 8 a.m. and will continue during regular business hours, Monday through Friday, from 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. through December 23rd. Appointments to file are encouraged but not required. Filing will not occur when the district offices are closed on Friday, December 24th and Monday, December 27th. Candidate filing ends on December 28th, 2021 at 5 p.m. The Parkway Administrative Center will be open from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. on Tuesday, December 28th to accept filings. We're normally closed, our offices are closed during that period, so we'll have someone there between that time to make sure that we can accept any filings. Filing will not occur on days the district offices are closed due to inclement weather, including the first and last day of filing, or in the event of a closure due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Per Parkway School District policy, candidates for filing for a 3-year term shall be listed on the ballot in order of filing. To make an appointment, or if you have any questions regarding candidate filing, please contact Nikki Stover at 314-415-8002 or nstover@parkwayschools.net. Candidates must wear a face covering and observe social distancing protocols while in district offices. So I will allow both of our board members who are up for re-election tonight or in April to just share if you do plan to run, and any comments you'd like to make.
At this point, my plan is to run for another term.
Okay.
After 36 years as an administrator at Parkway and 12 years as a board member, I have decided not to run and do some other things I enjoy in my life. But the entire career and the time on the board in Parkway has been just the most memorable, most rewarding, and most gratifying thing that I could ever imagine in terms of a career and the opportunity and the honor to serve as a board member in Parkway. So I will miss it very, very much. It was a very difficult decision, but I wish the candidates will come forward and we'll have a new person to take my place.
Okay. Thank you, Pam. Thank you, Sam. Next up, we have board and superintendent reports. So we'll start down there with Matt.
Well, following the lead out, thanks Sam for all his dedication to Parkway. It's been an honor to serve with you on the school board, and just your history with the district has been wonderful, and I appreciate your insight you've given to the board in my 3.5 years on the board.
Thank you very much, Matt.
So just briefly on the things that I've done since the last board meeting, we had a teaching, learning, and assessment committee meeting, goal 1, and got some good feedback on terms of adjustments to the curriculum and ways for the board to be more engaged in that process and aware of what's happening, which I think is good. And then I also was one of the members who got to attend the Missouri School Board Association conference in Kansas City. And I'll just quickly note that there were some good sessions. I got more insight and I guess more perspective on the challenges around discipline on students that commit things off campus that will affect the school afterwards. And then also the rights of students, both in terms of their needs and their wants at the school. And then really then to just the challenges we've had with COVID all across Missouri and the lessons we've learned in terms of what the school board can do and what the school board can't do, and the role that the administration plays in all this too. So it was really good sessions. And then the last one, what I think is even beyond just Parkway, and Missouri's struggling with it, is both teacher retention and teacher recruitment. It is not just a Missouri too, but it's all across the nation. And I think it's very important for us to realize to keep a good school district, we need to keep the ones we have that are great and recruit new ones coming in. And I think Parkway does a good job, but it's not gonna be easy. We do have a good system. I think the Spark program too, and trying to grow our own in terms of teachers coming back to Parkway is great, but it's a struggle. And I'll say even for Missouri as a whole, there's some districts out there that are paying barely above the minimum wage or the minimum salary for teachers, which is $25,000 in Missouri. So there are things we gotta deal with in the state of Missouri around teaching. I think there's some efforts to moving forward, but there's a lot more to do.
Well, I have to start by thanking Sam for his service all these years. When we come onto the board, we have a board mentor, and Sam was mine. And being able to learn from someone who has such a history with Parkway was amazing. I've learned so much from you, and I enjoy talking to you, and I'm going to miss your service on the board. Big shoes to fill is all I can say. It's been a month of virtual meetings for me. When I started going through my calendar and writing all of them down that I attended, the first one was the Parkway Religious Leaders Meeting. That is an advisory council that has existed for many, many years with various leaders from our faith communities within the district. We discussed it at that meeting, the support needed for the Parkway Food Pantry and how we can leverage support from our faith communities for the great needs in that area. I also attended the Finance and HR Subcommittee meeting where we received updates on the cybersecurity practices in the district. School districts are big targets for cybersecurity attacks because of the huge amount of data that they hold. And we have one of the best in Jason Rooks as far as keeping us safe when it comes to cybersecurity, and it's always good to hear from him what is being done in that area. We also discussed approaches to the changes in the minimum wage that are coming up and also some staff reorganizations. Finally, I was able to attend, we have a quarterly meeting among the Superintendent's Action Team, the PNEA, and board members. And we had a very open discussion around the topic of stressors. That's going on for everybody for various reasons. And there are going to be some things happening coming out of this discussion. It was, like I said, it was very open and honest and not easy, but it was necessary. So that pretty much covers my month of meetings.
Thank you, Pam. I attended the Project Parkway 3.0 meeting on, I believe, November 2nd. And the meeting basically entailed planning for future facilities. And the idea was to develop some focus groups of students, teachers, parents over the next several weeks to get input in terms of how people see the facilities, what are the needs, what should we be thinking about, et cetera. However, after SAT met regarding this proposal, it was tabled to basically put off to another time, primarily because with COVID, we need to spend more time on, as Pam mentioned, the stressors that people are feeling. Also, if we're going to get input, we need to get input regarding, how people feel, what can we do to help and support them. And the effort is placed more in that direction rather than strategic planning regarding facilities at this point. There will be a time that could be done, and that will be done very well. but it's on hold for now.
I just echo everything my colleague said about Sam. We'll miss you, Sam, for sure.
Thank you.
Two of my things have already been covered. I also attended the Missouri School Boards Association conference. Mostly went to sessions on legal issues facing districts, just to get up to speed on what was happening there. Also attended the Goal 1 subcommittee meeting with Matt. Just so everybody knows, our strategic framework has 3 big, broad goals. Goal 1 focuses on the student experience. Goal 2 is around teachers and Parkway as an employer, so our staff, and Goal 3 is around our financial health. So this was the Goal 1 subcommittee, so specifically focused on the student experience. And we got updates on curriculum changes that Matt referenced and how the board engages and knows what's happening in terms of changes in our curriculum, so we stay up to speed on that. And also updates on implementation of recommendations from our mental health task force and our equity task force. So just good to get big, broad overviews of that. The third thing I'll just mention is our upcoming vaccine clinic on November 19th. That is available to students whose parents are choosing to get them vaccinated against COVID-19. Grateful again to the district for putting this clinic on and for making the effort to make it easy for our parents to have a place to bring their students, again, to get vaccinated if they choose to do so. So I think actually we've added 2 more clinics. So there's a bunch of dates. I think we had 3,000 families express interest when we first put out the survey to see who was interested, which is great news, because as we move forward, this is just another step towards getting back to the normal that we're all hoping to get to. So, okay.
I'll begin by mentioning my career here with Sam Sorrentino. I've learned a great deal. It's been an honor to serve with Dr. Sorrentino. I've learned a lot about leadership and about education, and Sam's always done a marvelous job, when we're in closed session or whatever it is we're dealing with, of bringing us back to our mission statement and the focus on kids. And he brings 30 years of experience that all of us have benefited from, and the district as a whole. We're grateful. I'm grateful for the time I've served with you, and I'm sure Parkway is also grateful for all that you've done for this district. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you. I also attended the finance subcommittee meeting. There's some great folks in this district who do a lot of things I don't understand to keep us safe, and I just appreciate that we have these folks in place, and it was a pleasure to learn more about what you all do and how you do it, and we're in good hands. Earlier in tonight's meeting, we talked about 3 schools, elementary schools, honored for character education, and I'm fortunate enough that my children have attended 2 of those schools, Craig and Belle Reeve. And I just want to speak to how wonderful it is, the character education we do in this district, and how it can look so different from school to school. Craig does things one way. At Belle Reeve, my kids are doing things another way now. The focus on the 7 habits, and I always love when my kids bring those up out of nowhere. When my daughter says we should begin with the end in mind, I said, all right. When my son suggested synergizing things, I was like, great. So I love that the schools in this district engage in these programs, and I love how they go about it in unique ways. And finally, I also attended the school board conference in Kansas City, which was an illuminating experience. It's good to be around our colleagues from around the state. And Christy and I were fortunate enough to spend 8 hours driving back and forth to Kansas City with Dr. Marty, which was probably more educational than the conference itself. We learned about education, Harry Truman, the history of Wisconsin. So if you ever have the opportunity, I can't recommend it enough to show for the superintendent around.
Well, I'll take the opportunity as well to wish Sam well. And when I first came on board in 2014, Sam was already 3 years or more ahead of that game. And so I have learned a tremendous amount. I feel like we've become friends over these last 7 years and hopefully longer. And I too have learned a great deal. We are so blessed to have an educator sit at our midst. He brings a lot of foresight that some of us don't have, and can bring information to us that we otherwise wouldn't have. So you're going to be sorely missed, but I have a hunch we will be tapping into you at any opportunity that we can, that you might be interested in continuing to engage in helping the district out. So thank you so much for your many years of service, Sam. Very well appreciated. I didn't have any subcommittees that I went to since the last board meeting, but I will be attending a special school district governing council meeting on December 6th, so I'll have more to report on that there. But I just want to share, most of my time this past month since the last board meeting has been preparing for our decision tonight and to address the Piermont parents. This is a very difficult decision for any person sitting on this school board. Please do not think that we don't care. Please don't think that we haven't thought about that. I know, shake your head, that's fine. We put a lot of thought into this. I spent today driving around looking at the distance between Piermont, South Middle, West Middle, South High, West High. I've been doing this for several months, talking to people, looking at the data, re-reviewing presentations, re-reviewing slides. It's very difficult. It's a huge district that we have to look at. I acknowledge that I have not been satisfied with some of the process that we have gone through and have expressed that to our school board president and to administration. And I feel that we could do a better job moving forward in how we look at boundary lines and how we present information moving forward. I granted that COVID has been a little bit of a problem with trying to do some of the things that we normally would do. But moving forward, I do think that there are some improvements that we can make in a more consistent process and reevaluating our policies and procedures and how we move forward with these very difficult decisions. That said, we can't ignore the staff comments that we have received from West Middle, the tours that we have conducted at West Middle, the things that we have seen at West Middle. Some of it is COVID related and some of it is not. Bottom line is we want the best education for all of our students. Okay, I don't know why you're shaking your head no. We want the best education for every single student in this district. And we've got to figure out a way to do that. And the way that we're...
Your own teachers are afraid of talking. Why are we talking about going...
Mrs. Hopper has the floor. That's enough, Mr.
I'm
Gunn.
sorry, we'll have to deal with that in our future discussions. I appreciate you bringing that to our attention. I just wanted to acknowledge the parents here tonight. This is not for a debate. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you. We hear you. That's what I wanted to do. So we hear you, we thank you for the input, and this is a difficult decision, and it may not be a popular decision, and I understand that, but I at least wanted to say thank you, and we hear you, and we get it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Debbie. I like going last. I hate going last, usually because everything that I have on my screen here, the list of things and notes that I've made over the last month have already been mentioned. But a couple of them I will echo my fellow board members' comments, certainly about Dr. Sirotino. That was how I first came to know him back in '82 or so, and now I know him as Sam, and he doesn't put me in detention now, so that's nice. But Sam, it's been great to work alongside you, and as you heard, we expect that you'll still be around, and you still have time to change your mind. So I hope you're paying attention to those filing dates. I also attended the MSBA conference, and as always, got quite a bit out of it. I attended some of the same legal meetings that Christy went to, and Matt, and I've tried to focus on some of the mental health meetings that different districts are talking about, things they're doing around the state, just to see how we're doing. I also sat in on a couple of presentations by Parkway staff. We had several Parkway staff members, some some directors that went up there to present things that we're doing here in Parkway that we're pretty proud of. And they did an outstanding job, and I thank them for their time and giving up a couple of days to drive across the state and do that. I can tell you that, and I never knew this before getting on the board, but we have a lot of people who work in Parkway, not just administrators, but even a lot of teachers who spend an awful lot of time helping other districts here in the state, here in other states, and it's really refreshing to see that spirit of trying to be helpful, trying to lift another district up, another teacher up, because we have such great resources here and many other districts don't. So it's always nice to see that. I was able to sit in on our very first Medical Health Advisory Committee meeting. Dr. Marty put together a team of community members, doctors, who are. It was more just a Q&A, just a bunch of different conversations about different topics, masking, vaccines, health and wellness in general, and just where things are and where we think things are going, and how do we get there collectively as a community. So it's something that will be ongoing every few months, and I look forward to continuing that dialogue. Also attended several of the subcommittee meetings Pam had mentioned, and she's right. We have some great people here in Parkway doing some great things to keep us safe. Also attended the mayors and city administrators meeting last week, and that's always a good time to find out what's going on in our communities, all the municipalities in the Parkway footprint. We get information about new residential housing that's being developed. We get information about different programs that different cities are offering, and it's a great way to share what's going on in Parkway with our local mayors, and they help get the word out oftentimes for events that our food pantry is doing and lots of other things. So that was all great. And then I'll just echo Debbie's remarks about the Piermont. The things that we've heard from the Piermont community, things that we've heard from the Hannah Hoods community, things we've heard from South Middle parents and West Middle parents, and a few of the people who have taken the time to write us and share concerns. As Debbie said, despite whether you believe it or not, we have been listening. We spend an awful lot of time outside of this boardroom talking about things with administrators, talking about things with each other when we have a formal opportunity to do that, and doing an awful lot of research. As I've said in some of my responses to people who've emailed us, in our elected volunteer positions, we do have to take an oath of impartiality, and we take that oath extremely seriously. I know each and every one of you do. We've talked about it. And we do our best with all of the information that we have, information from the administrators, information from students, information from parents, information from people who don't even have kids in Parkway anymore. Everybody giving us their perspective, their opinion on what they feel is in the best interest of their student or their classroom or their building. And in the end, we have to collectively make a decision impartially about what we feel is in the best interest of students throughout the entire district. I mentioned it last month. I was a student that was at one school, and I didn't have a 3-year grace period. I had a 6-month grace period where I had, that's how much notice I was given that I was going to be going to a different school. Back then, Mason Ridge went to... You're negating your impartiality argument, because in every... Okay, all right. I will just leave that off. Thank you very much. I have the floor right now. Ms.
Mr.
Fusner.
Todd has the floor. This
Ms.
is not an
Fusner, I have the
opportunity
floor.
to engage.
Okay, thank you. So I will... Excuse me, I have the floor, please. So I would just like to thank everyone who has provided their input and perspective, and we do appreciate it. Dr. Marty, would you like to add anything?
Yes, I have a couple items. Since everybody's talking about Dr. Sarantino, I want to just add my comment if I could. Sam, thank you so much for your service, and Sam is the last surviving of the board members who actually was on the board when I was hired in 2010, 2011. And Sam, it's been wonderful to work with you, and you certainly have devoted, I challenged him to get to 50 years. He only has 48 years in Parkway, so, but what a service to Parkway. Boldly, Sam, I am going to correct you on one thing you did say. We are pausing a bit on Project Parkway, but not on facilities. We are going to move forward on some bond work, so I just want to make sure when you commented that we're holding, but the facility work, some of the planning for future facility work will continue, but we are pausing on some of the Project Parkway 3.0 work. I also enjoyed the Missouri School Board Association and with four board members, fellow colleagues here. I will say that Aaron Shoki and Michael Berlek were two of the presenters, did present information on our mental health task force and implementation that we've done around staffing and certainly learning more about our students through survey. And they did a great job staying room only. As Jeff said, we were in there, and a lot of information was shared by them that I think was appreciated by so many of their colleagues around the state. And then Amy Gerking-Coates, who's our talent coordinator, did a presentation on our professional development and some of the nature of the choices and personalized nature of our PD program. Unfortunately, she was on the last day, on the last session, but she boldly, I think she said she had 10 people still there for that presentation. So we enjoyed that. It was the first time in Kansas City, and I think we all agree it was a great venue to be in Kansas City with leaders from around the state. Certainly some sad news this week in our area, and we want to extend our sympathy as a school district. I know this board has said so, but certainly the young people who have passed away from Marquette and DeSmith and to those schools certainly suffering this week. We want to send our deepest sympathy. It's certainly very difficult for a school community. Greg Matheson actually was the principal at Marquette, and he certainly understands that's a large high school, but still very much affected. So we certainly want to send our sympathy. Christy Klein-Davis did mention the vaccine clinic. She is correct. We now have 3. Not only this Friday, but on Monday, the 22nd, and also on November 30th. And if we need to, we'll have more. So we're seeing a great response from our community for the 5 through 11-year-old vaccination opportunity, working with Medley Clinic and Diane Brown, our Director of Health Services, and Greg Matheson and others leading that work. We had a wonderful response by our schools last week of Veterans Day. While we had to make some changes, there was, for example, here at South Middle School, there was a parade that was put on by the administration and staff and the students, and they lined the streets. And many of other schools had similar parades, programs. Some of that was, I think, the Post-Dispatch did a story on Ross Elementary. We're so proud of our schools taking the time to recognize veterans, and veterans are so appreciative. So we are putting a video out. Take note of that through our communications department. And I'll actually say one of our proud veterans, Paul Tandy, is highlighted, as a couple of other staff members narrate that, and we're very, very proud, again, of our taking time to really honor our veterans. So very, very appreciative of, again, our school leaders to take the time to do that. Our food pantry, we had a distribution day yesterday at our food pantry, and we'll have another one on December 14th. Again, we're serving families, and we've seen just a significant amount of donations coming in and money to support that since our appeal. So it's a holiday season, and we want to really support our families here in Parkway. Approximately 200 to 250, I think, Dr. Matheson, right, are taking advantage of our food pantry every couple of weeks for distribution. Okay, let's see. I just want to make sure one of the things I wanted to mention here is boldly, we continue in Parkway to have, like so many entities, we have labor shortages, teacher assistants, bus drivers, custodians, early childhood program, venture club, substitute teachers. And we have an excess of 100 openings. So we say it at almost every board meeting, but if you know people in your family or in your neighborhood that are looking for employment, we have opportunities here in Parkway in areas that we think would be very valuable. We have great benefits and great opportunities for people to work in operations and certainly working with children if they're qualified. So please take advantage of that. And then finally, we finished our fall sports season on Friday, or on Saturday. Our last football team was eliminated in the playoffs, and we're now into winter sports. But, you know, given the COVID season, we had a wonderful fall sports season. Just great competition. We had 55 students compete last weekend in the state swimming meet from our 4 high schools, and we have some state champions. We had schools, well, 3 of our 4 high schools finished in the top 6 in their division. So swimming's a big thing and a big deal here in Parkway, and that was really shown at St. Peter's at the Recplex out there during the state swimming meet. But now we're in the winter sports, and we're inside, and we're ready to go for competition this winter. And again, we hope that'll be done safely, and we'll have a lot of good opportunities for our students to participate. And again, as we move forward with vaccinations and with watching our dashboard, we certainly are watching our ability to eventually move to, you know, a more opportunity to, you know, this is just planning that all districts. I was with superintendents from the area today to look at what we need to do when, again, we're able to welcome visitors and perhaps ease up on the masks. But we're not going to make that decision until we know it can be sustained and our students and staff are safe. So, but we are certainly, as superintendents and working with our county health department, having some initial discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, may I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the November 17th, 2021 board materials?
So moved.
Second.
Is there anything to be pulled to action or closed? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have 12.01, the approval of proposed middle school boundary changes. So I'd like to call on Dr. Chelsea Watson, Deputy Superintendent, for a brief presentation.
Sorry, Channel 4. Good evening again. Before we start, we always need to start with our Parkway mission before we begin any topic. And so remember why we are here. It's about our Parkway mission. It's about all kids. It's about our commitment. And it's about what we do each and every day. Last spring, we started the conversation about school enrollment in the West attendance area and talking about Southwest Middle School. So we have been engaged in this conversation for a good little while and hope that we have provided good information to you about Facilities 2030 and its impact on school enrollment. As you see, this slide is the proposed solution. This is a slide that you've seen a couple of times before. Since the last 8 months, probably, off and on, you've seen this slide. And so tonight, the Board of Education will acknowledge and review a motion in regards to making adjustments to Piermont's feeder pattern. Proposal is to go from Piermont to South Middle and Hannah Woods to Southwest Middle School, beginning with the incoming 6th graders for the upcoming school year. If the Board of Education approves this proposal this evening, there are a couple of things that will go into place. One, transition activities. Our principal from Southwest Middle School and our principal from South Middle School will invite families from Piermont and Hannah Woods to those middle schools next month. This will be a specific and intentional transition opportunity for students and families in the evening to tour the school, meet the principals, and learn a little bit more about Southwest Middle School and South Middle School based on where currently, the students will go if the board approves this proposal. Our middle school principals are not new to helping families transition to middle schools. As you know, we have students from multiple elementary schools going to each of our middle schools every single year. District level programs, we are cognizant that there have been conversations and questions about the district level programs. That is not going to be a part of the motion tonight, as that is a decision that administration makes. So if the board approves the proposal, the administration will make final decisions about specific district programs before Thanksgiving and communicate that information to the community and to families involved. At this point, any members of the team will entertain any questions you may have.
Any board members have any additional questions?
I don't have a question, but I assume that Toby and Aaron will probably before the end of the week send a very, very sincere welcome to their schools, to the parents and the students.
Before the end of,
At Hannah Woods.
I am sure they will do it as soon as they can. Can I promise by the end of this week? I can't promise that. I don't know their schedules, but
But I think it needs to happen immediately. I really do.
I'm sure they would be happy
I know
to.
they're excited about it. I know they welcome the families from Piermont and Hannah Woods. But I think getting something out immediately to sincerely express that would be really positive.
I will certainly follow up. I will tell you that when I mentioned the transition activity and talked to them about, what we would foresee happening, they were both energetic, very positive, and absolutely, no hesitation at all.
All right, thank you.
Any additional questions?
I'd just like to thank everyone involved in the process. Obviously, you mentioned this has been a multi-month endeavor, identifying an issue, working collaboratively to come up with a proposal. None of this is easy. It'd be nice if all we did was shake hands at graduation, and I respect that parts of this job for the people on the front lines are not always easy or pleasant, but I want to let you all know from the board's perspective that we appreciate the service and commitment to doing the right thing in the best way possible.
Chelsea, could you provide a little bit more detail on what the transition activities would look like?
Unfortunately, I can't. That will be up to the school to determine what that looks like. Clearly, they're going to invite families into the building for some conversations. I know they talked about a tour. I don't know what other staff members they may invite to be there for that event, but the principals will determine what that transition looks like. And I have no doubt that it will be a positive experience. They will have a question and answer period. We did talk about that when the parents come in. We talked about a tour. But as far as the other pieces of the agenda and the meat of that time, they will work through that.
I don't know if there's going to be a question embedded in here. It's more of a comment. I know that there is just as much concern about the transition out of South Middle as there is in the concern in the transition into South Middle. Meaning that some kids will be going to one school and some kids will be going to the other. And I trust our administration. It is a middle school principal's job to transition kids from elementary to high school. And even if the plans aren't in place yet, I know that specifically the principal at South Middle is going to be working with those principals at the two high schools to make sure that every student has a good transition if this proposal goes through. I just feel like that is one of the biggest fears in this proposal, and it's an understandable fear. But it's also not a fear that I've heard from the administrators who work with this every day. So I know there wasn't really a question there, but just a reassurance that South Middle is going to recognize that they may be different.
So-
And they will do what is needed for those students.
There is a very specific protocol in place for our middle schools to transition with administrators and counselors and social workers to the high school, just as there is with elementary schools. And, you know, we have 3 elementary schools going into a middle school, or 4 elementary schools going into a middle school. There are very specific protocols in place to address each and every student. So students are not going into the school and with administrators and counselors have knowledge of the kids they are going to serve. We have 2 elementary schools currently that feed to 2 different middle schools, and there are protocols in place to make sure that every kid is taken care of, no matter which school that they go to.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll add one more point. Obviously, I haven't been in public education nearly as long as a lot of my colleagues or Sam. But one of the things I've learned as part of this is that, you know, this is a collaborative process, and, you know, there's not always, you know, not everyone's always happy, but just to the parents that are here, the parents that have emailed us, the parents that have got involved, you know, for my part, I respect how much you all care about your kids and about their education, and I think it speaks well to their futures, how involved and concerned their parents are, and we do appreciate your involvement in all of this, and I'm sure your kids will be the ultimate beneficiaries of having involved, concerned, and caring parents.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Okay, thank you, Dr. Watson. At this time, may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve the middle school assignment changes for the duration of students' 6th to 8th grade years, starting with the 2022-2023 school year, as follows. Piermont to South Middle and Hannah Woods to Southwest Middle. The high school attendance patterns for Piermont will remain at West High, and Hannah Woods will remain at South High.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Nikki.
Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Ms. Hill?
Yes.
Mrs. Hopper?
Yes.
Mr. Schindler?
Yes.
Dr. Ciartino?
Yes.
Mr. Seltzer?
Yes.
Mr. Todd?
Yes. Motion carries 7-0. Next up, we have policy review, 1301 and 13.02. We're going to have a presentation on, or are we just, okay. So, policy review 1301, which is FEE.BP, selection of design build contractor, and 13.02, DCB.BP, political campaigns. Any board members have any questions for Mrs. Bedborough or Mr. Tandy? Okay. So, seeing or hearing no questions, these policies will be up for review at the next regular board meeting. We have no formal reports tonight, but we do have a work session. 15.01 is our data management and research preliminary work session. I'd like to invite Dr. Nathan Tyson, Director of Data Management and Research.
Vice President Hopper, Dr. Marty, Ms. Stover, directors of the board, thank you for having me. Normally I come here to talk to you more in a supporting role for these program reviews. Tonight I'm actually doing, this is the department that I'm a part of. So just going to go ahead and talk through a little bit of data management research and provide to you the main topic areas and guiding questions that we're looking to study. And then at the very end to see if you have any feedback, questions, anything else that you'd like us to look into and investigate as we move forward. All right, so very brief history. In 2012-13, there was a reorganization for the district under Dr. Marty's leadership. Part of the reorganization was to take registration which was at each of the schools, and to move it to a centralized location. The idea was that if we did centralized registration, there would be a process that would allow for greater accuracy, more consistency, and better efficiency. So since then, there have been several important changes that have happened to centralized registration, including going to online registration, turning our student records into digital student records, including the position of a lead registrar, and then also the reduction of the district registrar positions from 10 at the very beginning when we started down to 4. Part of going to 4 is then we needed to bring in temporary help when we had extremely busy registration times, but we were able to move from 10 down to 4, and currently we have a registrar who oversees each area of the school district, so that's how that works. Also, for centralized registration to work, really, we had to adapt and include some formal and informal communication structures. And one of the very important structures that needed to happen was a position called a school liaison. It's not a formal position that HR would provide us with, but someone in each of the school is designated a school liaison. They're the ones who work closely with the district registrar to make sure that the registration process happens efficiently and effectively. School liaisons are an indispensable part of centralized registration in Parkway. All right, so the staff, there are 3 area registrars. There is a lead registrar who also has an area. There's a confidential specialist, and then there is a director. We're located at the Welcome Center, and we are part of the Student Services Department. Registrar responsibilities, right here, so essentially just kind of an overview, but completing student registration, taking care of requests for student records, updating and maintaining demographic information, monitoring the entry of grades, completing withdrawal process when a student leaves the district, maintaining data integrity, and then investigating residency issues. Lead registrar responsibilities, so when we moved over and included a position for a lead registrar, it was really to have a registrar team leader, have that team leader serve as a point of contact for the registration office, also really serve as a way of being cohesive for the department, being a point of contact for registration, training the new registrars, serving as a mentor to the new registrars, and then also being involved in other ways to kind of how can we make the department better, what can we do to make sure we catch any kind of errors in the data early so that we can correct them moving forward. Research responsibilities, so this is more kind of what my position, data management and research. Data management is more registration. This is more the research side of my position, so supporting program evaluations, providing enrollment projections, distributing surveys, conducting data analysis, facilitating the collection of accurate data, reporting demographic information, taking care of external research requests, and then fulfilling data requests that come our way. So tonight, the purpose of the work session is to seek the Board of Education input and guidance on the main topic areas and guiding questions that will drive this program evaluation. So our program review planning team actually was 3 separate teams. One was the Superintendent's Action Team. There were 3 members from Superintendent's Action Team that joined me for a discussion. We also had a separate group that was composed of registrars, a representative from pupil personnel, and a couple of representatives from the technology department. And then we had a group where I pulled together some school liaisons and my own assistant in the department to talk through this review and what we might want to look at and investigate. So here are the main topic areas. So the first one is departmental vision. Second one is centralized registration. Third is supporting schools. Finally, digital records. So for the departmental vision, guiding questions here, what is the long-term vision for the department? What are the most important things the department does? What departmental inefficiencies exist, and should they or how should they be corrected? 3 more under departmental vision. How do other school districts accomplish data management and research? Do we need to make adjustments to our own organizational structure? Parkway collects a lot of data. Should we be conducting research, more research in-house on all of the data using all of the data that we have? And then finally, for this main topic area, data management and research department interacts with several other departments in Parkway. If there's overlap or where the overlap exists, do roles and responsibilities need to be adjusted and or clarified?
All right, under centralized registration, what staffing model works best? How might we provide a more convenient, user-friendly process for parents, especially when it comes to online registration? What would an ideal training program look like for new registrars, and what would be included in a growth program for our more experienced registrars? How could we go about producing a high-quality registrar manual? And how might we structure our busy registration time so as to accomplish the work as efficiently and effectively as possible? Moving on to our third main topic about supporting schools. How frequently should training, review, and update meetings be conducted? So again, with supporting schools, this is sort of more of an outreach from centralized registration out to the schools. What would a successful mentoring program look like for new school secretaries? How should the existing school manual be upgraded, expanded, and improved upon to best meet the needs of the school secretaries? What processes and built-in redundancy should be in place to ensure the timely registration of students? How might we develop security protocols around staff access to the student information system and information warehouse? That makes most sense. And then finally, under the category of digital records, what would a periodic audit of our digital student records entail? How should we determine whether it makes sense to convert Class 2 files into digital records? What would a review of staff access to digital records look like? And then our last two guiding questions under digital records, how might we provide new school secretaries with training on the processing and uploading of digital records, including providing examples of each digital record type? What about a refresher course for our more experienced secretaries? And then finally, how might we conduct a review of our digital records naming standards? Proposed timeline right here. So back in early November is when we brought the planning teams together, identified the main topics and guiding questions. I'm here tonight, November 17th, for this preliminary conversation with you all. We went through and outlined the main topics and guiding questions, and obviously want to hear from you and then what expectations you may have for the report in February. The program evaluation itself will happen from November through January. And then in late January, that's when we're going to develop the preliminary findings, share those preliminary findings with the planning teams, meet with Superintendent's action team to discuss findings and recommendations. Early February, complete the report, and then share the report with Superintendent's action team, and then come back to you all in February to give the final report to the board. And that's all I have for tonight. So if you all have any feedback or discussion, or if there was anything that I mentioned that was confusing and you need some clarification, I'd be happy to try to do that at this time.
Thank you, Nathan. I do have one question. You talked about reviews of digital records. I know it hasn't been that long ago and we didn't have digital records, we had analog records. Has there been a review of records of any type in the recent past, and would we use that, if there was, would we use that same type of strategy to review digital records?
Yeah, so let me okay, so with our digital records, so in terms of the digital records, at least the project that I oversaw, it happened actually that first summer after the lockdown due to COVID. So we essentially took all of our Class 1 student files, those are considered our permanent files for students, and hired a bunch of brought in a bunch of secretaries during the summer to go ahead and take all those paper copies, scan them, upload them into our student information system, Infinite Campus. So we have all of those documents in there now digitally. Super helpful because it's easy for folks like principals if they need to pull it up off-site, at home, wherever. They can pull up records. It's also much easier from a centralized registration point of view rather than having to reach out to the school, hey, can you send us a record that we need to look at? We can look at it on Infinite Campus, so it makes it way simpler for us. But I do know that there are a lot of this conversion, migration from paper to digital throughout the district. I know HR was involved in some of that, and I think some of our other departments in the district. So in terms of your question, Jeff, so what specifically were you getting at? Was it just like the part that I'm considering, or are you thinking like over the whole district when it comes to digital records?
Well, specifically to what you're talking about, a sidebar question: how far back do these digital records now go? So if a principal at one of the high schools wanted to go back and see how a student did in middle school or even before, do they have that ability?
Yeah, so we went ahead and took any active student at the time when we did it and brought them in. And then now whenever we have a new student come in, the records are automatically digitized. So, yeah, so, and then even before we went to this process, pupil personnel under Dr. EJ and Tyler Freeland, our student record specialist, they have like microfilmed records going way, way back. We have to have, I think the state says you have to keep it for like 75 years, like transcripts from students who attended Parkway a long time ago and then leave. Yeah, those have been sort of digitized for a long, long time. Now we've moved to like having all 17,000 students have their cumulative files digitized in Infinite Campus. So,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah, so that's where we are. But yeah, I think the review that we're looking specifically at is, since it's been like a year and a half now since we've done this, there are just some kind of technical pieces about naming standards, auditing the records, making sure that we're able to see, if there's any questions that have come up, or are we missing documentation that we should have. So just some different, kind of going back now that we've completed the project and given it some time. Now we want to go back and just see, is there anything that we need to kind of clean up as we move forward. So.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a way to delete records, perhaps from school board members that attended Parkway School?
No.
The question that I have is around security and confidentiality of records. So school by school, are the individuals at that particular school only authorized to see records of the students at that school so that they don't, they can't go off looking at records of somebody else that they may have an interest in?
Yeah, we've actually taken this part very seriously, and we actually require that folks who, there's a small group of people in the district who can just go and look at records. It's like the principal and the school liaison at the school, since they're the ones who are actually doing the work, the registrar, same thing. But in terms of like any other people, they have to get requests, they have to fill out a form saying why they're looking at this record. We take that very seriously. As a matter of fact, we have received some pushback from teaching staff. Just, why do I have to go through this hassle? They used to just be able to walk in and pull a paper copy and it wasn't a big deal. Whereas now you got to go through a little bit more, and we had it pretty tightly locked down. Even myself, so if I'm looking up a birth certificate for some reason, I go in and log why I went, who I looked at, what record it was, and why, so that's in our repository of, basically it's just a form that'll collect all of that information for why people are going in and looking at the records.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so we take it very seriously.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So I assume discipline records are not part of this.
Yeah, discipline records are actually part of Class 2. So one of the questions was, should we consider, because we have received from principals, would there be a time when maybe we could do the same thing with the Class 2 files? I think at the moment we're holding off just to kind of pending Class 1, see how that all plays out. It seems like it's going well so far. But then also it was quite a commitment in terms of resources, staff time, money to make that conversion, especially for a district as large as ours. So we are discussing it, we're considering it, we're thinking about it, and discipline records are part of Class 2. Yep.
Nathan, the only thing that came up for me was, a lot of this is very technical, and it feels like your staff is really excited to kind of do some quality assurance checks and look at training. The thing that comes up for me as we think about the online registration process that you mentioned is how does that go for parents? How does that feel for parents? And how does that feel for parents who are, perhaps their students are part of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing program or part of SSD services as well, or immigrants to the country, or, some of the groups that all students, but also some of the groups that it may be more challenging for, and just really looking into whether that experience is working for them and any small upgrades we could make to make it easier.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments?
I would just say that we're pretty fortunate to have Nathan all these years, and just in my tenure, he has indicated there's just been so many changes in the last 5 to 10 years. And but it's great, I think, as we said in these program evaluations, to want to get better and to review what other school districts are doing. But I think my team would agree that we think we do well, but we want to learn and do better, especially with the digitizing of records. and the confidentiality. You brought up some great issues here that we really are conscious of. And we also know, we're not all, we want to pass on to those coming after us, because that's where records become important. I mean, we got to do our due diligence so the next people are going to use those records have a clear path. One of my worries when I came to the school district, as Nathan said, was we weren't always that organized. We were kind of, buildings had responsibilities, and that was kind of a tough one to take on because people really valued that. The problem with that is you don't have consistency, so I think we've improved our consistency. But again, we can continually improving and do better, and again, under Nathan's leadership and pupil service, student services, and Greg's leadership, I think we can continually to do better in this area because record keeping is so vital and so important.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Look forward to the report.
All right.
We have no special meeting, so may I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you all for attending and/or watching remote.